Showtime. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome again to my resident panelists, Codilia Gapare and Desiree Peterkin Bell. And today we welcome another amazing expert guest panelist, Julia Esteve Boyd. Now,
Thank you.
Julia, you are here today, and it's quite serendipitous. I can't pronounce it. But when we planned to have you, we had no idea that today you would also have your international number one best-selling book, A Dash of Decorum. Yes, and we were planning today to talk about etiquette and why is etiquette cool. So we're going to start off, guys, by just first of all introducing ourselves. And I'm going to ask the panelists in this forum, we're all about empowerment. I am Bernie Davis, and I'm the CEO and founder of Bernie Davis Global. And I am all about empowerment, but empowerment with authenticity, empowerment with heart, empowerment with excellence. And it's all about going together or not at all. Yes, it's about inspiring, educating, and informing and creating that legacy that we can leave for generations onwards. That's why I'm so excited about today, because what better way to leave a legacy than through the written content, through the books, a book. So Julia, first of all, do a bit of showing off. Tell us about who you are and tell us about your latest achievement and tell us about why etiquette. Why now?
Hi, I'm Julia, everybody. Glad you're all here. I am an etiquette consultant, and I kind of fell into the world of etiquette about almost 20, no, 15, 18 years ago. And then I realized that this was what I had been missing in my life because etiquette really helps. It helps in business, with family, with friends, with dining, obviously. And here we go, my book, A Dash of Decorum, and it's 101 tips for dining etiquette. And the reason I started this book was because, I'll show you this, I had this little booklet made for some ladies. I was giving them a dining etiquette course in Mexico, and they were so impressed with it. They had to do exercises and whatever, but they were so impressed. They said, wow, this is really good, this could be really useful. So I started writing this book and really never got around to sort of doing very much with it. Never really finished it. And then one day I just thought, okay, let's get the bull by the horns and I'm going to do this. So I contacted Bernie and we took our time to sort of discuss what we would do. And literally last week, it just went to number one. So I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased. Thank you, Bernie.
Yes, and Julia, number one in how much? Under
Well,
12 hours.
yes, yeah, 12 hours. No, so initially it was sort of the number one new hot release, and then it went international. So there's been a lot of interest, and
Yes.
we first of all we put it on Amazon Kindle, and I had so many people saying, no, we want to see the book, we want to see the book. So we pulled the date forward a little bit, well, quite a bit actually. I think we pulled the date forward by a week or 2 weeks. And so now everybody's receiving their copies, and the overall response has been very positive. But I think dining etiquette it's something that's always been really important to me, and I don't know if it's because it's one of the first things that I was ever sort of really trained to teach when I worked in a finishing school, and it always sort of really stayed with me. Also, I love food. I love eating. I love dining out. So I'm always observing and learning when I travel as well. So I think it's a good topic, and I think it's relevant.
Yeah, very relevant, because I know a lot of us might be rolling our eyes and thinking etiquette. Okay, all right,
Exactly.
okay. We're not in Downton Abbey days now. Like, really, do we need to know about etiquette? What I
Exactly.
love about what Julia did with the book is that she made it very relevant to us in the here and now. And the reality is, we are all aware as business people, as solopreneurs, as influencers, that the right impression is very important. And
Very.
if you think about it, where do we more often than not have an opportunity to showcase ourselves? It's usually in a dining environment, isn't it? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's a coffee, whether it's a little lunch, whether it's a buffet,
Yeah.
whether it's the awards dinner or the black tie event, we are always in that kind of environment. So it really makes sense to get a little bit of of knowledge as to what to do. Yeah, I think so. So fantastic, Julia. And for those of you who might be, some of you might think, okay, what's her credentials? Well, let me read that. 20 years trained in international corporate etiquette, and she taught etiquette at an exclusive Swiss finishing school. She was also trained by the former deputy chief of protocol at Pentagon as a protocol officer, and she also was trained by the director of events at ABC Television in special events management, and more and more and more. Get the book. She's really made us realize why. Before she told you what she needed to tell you, she made you realize, okay, guys, you should listen to me a little bit. I can tell you a thing or two. Awesome. So now I tell you, we move on to the to our resident panelists. And Cody, Cody, Cody. A little bird told me there's a TEDx fever in the air. Let's hear Cody, because I always say that Cody is the soundbite queen. If you want those little nuggets, this is that just are just powerful and on point. Yes, speak to Cody. Well, I can just imagine what her 12 to 15 minutes were, or 18 minutes they give you at TEDx. Now you tell us about your recent awards, Cody, and also your TEDx experience.
So recent awards, because there's been two. Um,
Ooh,
so yeah, and it's been, I think this past few months have been really amazing, and it's sort of like it's a shadow of things that I've been working on in the past, and they sort of like coming to pass, and it's really good. And I think the only shame about the TEDx is I can't call myself. You've done TEDx, Bennett. I can't call myself a TEDx speaker yet until the
the
video
video
has been
goes up.
and it's uploaded. So we're waiting for that. But I did deliver a TEDx talk, and I was a speaker before I started that journey. But then now, because when we did TEDx in Northwich, we had an amazing lady called Catherine Sunderland, who is a speech coach who took us on that journey. So I felt like I grew a lot while I was on that journey. And again, something that a lot of you do not realize, I am also now a visiting lecturer at University of Chester's Business School. So that is amazing, and I have been enjoying it so much. Is to speak to young brains who are still eager, like you. So I'm really enjoying that. And in terms of my awards, I was a finalist, nominated finalist, not international, Businesswoman of the Year, 2022, and I was also nominated in Cheshire for the Queen's Jubilee Award. So 70 people were honoured by for that award. Were nominated for that award in Cheshire. So the Platinum Jubilee. So I'm one of the 70 in Cheshire, and I'm absolutely grateful.
Awesome. Fantastic, Cody. And for those of you who don't know who Cody is, who are just joining us for the first time in our empowerment series, Cody is the CEO and founder of Sea Lash, which is an incredible innovation creating eyelashes for people who have overcome or who are struggling with cancer and have lost their eyelashes, to keep women feeling beautiful throughout a time that is one of the most difficult times that they could have in their life. And Cody's brand is all over the world, and it came out of her own experience and her own survival of breast cancer. So we're talking here about a woman who has a business that we all do really, that is about the heart. It is something that's near and dear to her, and it is a legacy that she's building and leaving for those who are coming behind her. So I really do applaud you, Cody, and thank you for being one of our resident panelists. Now,
A
last
pleasure.
but not least, oh, the lady in the red hat, no, Desiree Peterkin Bell. Take a bow. First of all, we want to hear about your hat,
Yes.
and then
Well,
it's up to you.
I'm always excited to be here and welcome Julia, and always excited to be here with my compadre Cody. All brought together by Bernie. So I am wearing a hat. Well, first, I'm Desiree Peterkin Bell. I'm the CEO and president of DP Bell and Associates. It is a social impact and public affairs firm, and by the grace of all the universe, we are being awarded the Trailblazer Award, or I will be awarded the Trailblazer Award by the oldest and first chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists here in the US. And so that's a big award for us in the community, given all the work that we do around social impact, highlighting the voices that don't often get highlighted and telling the stories that need to be told. And so I commit and dedicate my life's work to being driven by purpose, not position. And
Ooh,
so I'm grateful for that. But my hat,
yes,
my hair's not done, but my
that's
hat
all right.
is a hat that was prepared for me. You see here, it's a Queen's emblem
Yes,
here,
yeah, yeah,
crown, purpose, not position, which is my mantra. That's
awesome.
I live by. There is fire all around the rim of the hat because I have
Woo,
been through the fire and
this
come out
girl's
of
on fire.
it. And what I represent, which is movements, not moments,
Mm.
people who want to make a difference, and brands that matter.
Woohoo! Awesome, awesome. I always talk about the brand and the brand, it's continuity, the brand recognition. You're always in your hat, but it's not just a brand without a mission. It's a
Yeah.
brand with a mission, and I love that hat. So continue now and tell us now about you.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned before, I lead a global public affairs firm. We do a lot of work around social movements, social justice here in the United States around the time of both Ahmaud Arbery and the actual Breonna Taylor case, as well as George Floyd's case. My team was brought together to highlight some of these stories and to fight for justice of people in the community. So we do everything from there to working with criminal justice reform, working with movements and moments. I'm an international bestseller myself. I often tell my stories about the work that I have been doing across the world. That's one of the reasons why I'm getting this award by the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists for my global impact, both in movements, PR consulting, crisis communications, and marketing. I am also very happy to announce that I am a global ambassador for women around the causes of women's issues, pro-choice, and issues around economic equity and prosperity. Me and my team have been taking on lots of conversations in various countries, Tel Aviv, Colombia, the Caribbean, having really hard, honest conversations with women about what aligns us, not what divides us. And that's what we're really seeking to honor and continue to do.
Awesome, fantastic. This is so amazing. And I love being able to not only share what talent, expertise, and vision we have in our panel, but also what we are all doing. Because, guys, we're not just asking you to watch this, and we're just going to be shared all over social media. Even though it's live, it will be on social media and it will be able to be shared. But it's about also giving you an opportunity to know how we can help you, how we can provide support for you in whichever way that ticks your box when you are listening to us. So, I ask my panelists to talk about what they're doing, because you can't know otherwise how they can support you. And at the end, they will also be leaving their contact details as to how you can contact them. But we want to let you know that we are women who have gravitas behind us. Yes. And we can do something to make your life and your journey and your business that much better and easier for you. So now let's go into the topic for today. We're going to talk about etiquette. Now, Julia, why is etiquette cool? That's what you're trying to tell us. You tell me. I don't believe a word of what you're saying. Tell me why.
No, I think etiquette is cool. And, when I first started on my own after I had left the finishing school and sort of traveled a little bit, I was trying to think of what to call myself. And I didn't want to use the word etiquette because people automatically think, oh, that's really old fashioned and who needs it? And, oh, it's just irrelevant. And I really, really didn't want to use it. And then I was speaking with one of my daughters, and she said to me, Mum, just use the word. Just say what you are. It's etiquette. And that's it. And hold it like a badge of honor. So I called myself the etiquette consultant, and that was it. I think etiquette is very relevant for everything that you do. It's relevant in all your interactions. And it goes beyond, obviously, dining etiquette. I mean, that's a topic that I particularly enjoy, as I've said already, but it goes with all your interactions. It's not just about how you hold your fork, because you can have enough good etiquette to be able to hold a conversation with the person that's at the dining table across from you, beside you, or at a networking event, or in a business meeting. And if you present yourself well and then you make a mistake and you hold your fork the wrong way, it doesn't matter. But it's just really an extension of kindness. Just being.
That's exactly what I got from your book. And you said it before I said it. What I was going to interject with, because for me, what I took away from it is that etiquette is cool now because kindness has finally become cool.
Yes.
People understand the importance of being kind and considerate, and that is what etiquette rests on. I saw Desiree nodding her head there. Come on, Desiree, tell me what you're.
It is. It's about, the concept that we are all in this together as well, right? Because it's not a singular act, right? It's also about your relationship with someone else, that crowd, that other person at the table, that other person, on the train, on the bus, wherever it is. A lot of that is the etiquette and how we connect with each other. And so I'm looking forward to hearing more. But that's when I think about that's what resonates most with me.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Go on, Julia, and then I'll ask.
I was just going to say, it's not about being a pushover or being too soft or always saying yes. You can stand up for yourself, but you can do things in a manner that is not offensive to somebody else. I think that's the main thing in whatever interactions you have.
Yes, Cody.
For me, I said before, this is one that I'm really interested on because I am bilingual and, well, I speak a few languages, but mainly English and Shona, which is my language from Zimbabwe. And the etiquette in Zimbabwe is different from here. So it's quite amazing because I remember when I first came here, I got off the plane at Heathrow Airport and there was this sign from HSBC. And it's a sign that means a lot of different things in different languages in different places. And I think for me, that's what etiquette is. It differs from place to place. So for me, I grew up in Africa where there is different etiquette. Like if I have an important thing to say, my dad could be sitting right there, but I have to tell my mom, and then my mom will tell my dad. I can't tell my dad directly. And that's etiquette where I come from. So it's really interesting for me to become bilingual in terms of etiquette as well. So I'm excited.
That's interesting, Julia. You said something in your book about who you speak to first. Would you like to share that bit in your book about when you have the guest of honor and who is referred to first and who is not in the seating and conversation?
Traditionally, in the very formal events, you would talk. The guest of honor would always be positioned to the right. The right hand man, the right hand person. So they would always be there, and you would have to start the first course conversing to the person on your right, and then during the next course you would turn and converse to the person on the left, so that it would be polite so that everybody was included in the conversation. And however, now, I mean, it's obviously very different. I would never say that that's anything anybody ever has to do. But it's interesting to keep in mind that you pay attention to talking to those who are around you, just so that everybody feels included. And I think in my book I mentioned about Lewis Hamilton.
Yes.
He was dining at some event. It was in all the newspapers. He was interviewed afterwards. He'd been dining with Her Majesty the Queen. And he started to talk to her as the food arrived, and he said something to her, and she said, no, no, no. Well, actually, Bernie, you can do the better accent.
I tried it. That was actually a fluke that I got the accent, because I don't normally get the accent right. But yeah, she was like, no, you can't speak to me. I'd have to find it. And you have to find the actual thing. But she actually told him, she set him right with etiquette, saying, no, you have to speak to this. I have to speak with this person on my either right or
I'll
left.
speak to the person on my right. You speak to the person on the other side. I'll get back to you later.
Exactly. And the thing is that the interesting thing about that is we might say, oh yeah, Lewis Hamilton and the Queen. Come on, how many of us are OBEs, MBEs, CBEs? Yes, you just might end up having to sit beside the Queen or the future king.
Exactly.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. And even if you don't have that opportunity, then just to take away something that you remember, just to sort of be inclusive with everybody that's around you. And also, Cody, you were just talking a little bit about culture. And it's so interesting because, cultures vary all around the world, and especially when we eat and when we dine together. So this is why the book I specifically said it's Western dining etiquette.
Yes, I was going to ask.
Standard. There are variations throughout Europe, the USA, in the United Kingdom. But you go somewhere else, you go to China, you go to Japan, you go to Argentina, it's going to be completely different. They'll have different table manners, they have different rules, different utensils, maybe not even using utensils. But also you mentioned about the gesture that you saw for the bank advertisement, and they actually made quite a few mistakes with their adverts that were very offensive in different cultures. And there's a trend now with people on social media showing, well, this is how you do something. Quite often it's etiquette related, and they say, yeah, this is how you do something, and they hold up their thumb to say this is correct, which a lot of people understand, but there are cultures where that's really, really, really offensive. So, it's this is a cultural etiquette is something that's very important as well.
Yeah, it's true. I was going to say, picking off of Cody and what you said, Julia, which is I've had the blessings of traveling the world, right? Working for both, world leaders here in the US, so President Barack Obama, but also, Pope Francis as well, and other global leaders. And depending on where you are, it's different for different things, right? So if we're meeting, and if we're in Nigeria or Kenya, right? And then folks want to challenge me and, try to show the best jollof rice or fufu, right? They're using their hands, right? And so, for me, it was a new thing. And I was like, oh, we're not doing forks. Oh, okay. All right. But it's different, right? And then also when same thing with, as you mentioned with the Queen, Pope Francis, you're not allowed to talk to him directly. You have to talk to a member of the Pontifical Council. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Because he's such a deity. And so it really depends on where you are and how culture is impacted by that. But I actually have a question for Julia, which is, how do you think etiquette transcends culture? Should it, or does it, or in what areas does it?
It's the cultural variations are so different, but they're so important. And I always just recommend to anybody that if you're traveling somewhere for the first time and you're going to a new culture, then try and do a little bit of research so that you're not going to offend somebody with how you dress or how you eat or whatever. You don't have to know every single thing, but there are a few.
This answers the question. This page 132 and 133 does help to answer the question, where you see here the different placing of hands. And what you get here, the British culture, hands should never be placed on the table, only visible when eating or drinking. Continental, the hands should always be visible. So you have the hands visible there. It's really good, guys. It shows you all it. And the American, only the hand or hands you are using should be visible when you're eating or drinking. That's interesting. Interesting, isn't it? And so it's a European hands should always be visible. In fact, the French have a saying, when it comes to the hands, arms, elbows on the table, always, sometimes never. Always hands on the table. Sometimes forearms, sometimes on the table. Never elbows, never on the table. So, it really does give, there are the cultural nuances.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that it's even within Europe, there are cultural variations as to how we eat and how we behave and how we gesture. If you think about what we typically think of Italians and how they gesticulate quite a lot, and the British a little bit less so. And even the menus, you would have a 4, 5, 6 course meal. The order of the food will be entirely different in one place to another. Even types of conversations that you have, if you're communicating with somebody that let's say they're Chinese, and they can be very direct in their questioning. How much do you earn?
Yes,
you have.
So true.
So very sort of interesting questions that you just might not feel that comfortable answering. So knowing a little bit about the culture before you travel means that you can think a little bit how you might deflect from that situation, how you might respond to a question like that.
Yeah, and I totally agree, because for me, I went to Brunei, I went to Malaysia, then I went over to Brunei, and I was working there, and when somebody says don't look at something and you can't help but look at that something, one of the things they say to you is, when you point, you can't point using your forefinger, and you have to use your thumb to point at someone.
Wow.
And women can never shake people. Women can't shake men's hands. And I shake hands. And every single time I would walk into a building, I was training a lot of men, because part of what I do as a day job, and I still do it part-time, I work in the oil and gas industry. So I feed ATEX cases on phones and tablets so they can take them onto the oil rigs. So I was teaching all these guys who are going on oil rigs how to, I was fitting these cases and teaching them about compliance. So all these men kept walking into the training room, and the first thing that I would do is just put my hand up to their hands, and they would just look at me and like, what are you doing? And I think it's because somebody says, don't shake their hands. My brain just kept wanting to shake everyone's hands.
Oh, that just reminds me of a funny story that Julia mentioned. It was it in the book, or was it me you told about when you went to Japan?
Oh, I don't think that's in the book. No, I think I was just telling you about that story. Yes, I had been on a sort of Japanese cultural training week, and I had spent time with a Japanese guide for, I think, 6 or 7 days. And we were in Kyoto, and she was explaining all, we did tea ceremonies and learned everything that I could possibly learn in a week. This was many years ago. This was 18 years ago, 15 years ago. And after being with her for a week, we had breakfast together, we had lunch together, we had our evening meals together. I just felt like, I liked, she was a lovely woman, and I felt that I knew her very well. So she was saying goodbye to me. I was taking the train to go back to Tokyo, and I was on the platform. The train pulled in, and we said goodbye. It was wonderful. Thank you so much. I've learned so much. And I just impulsively gave her a big hug. I threw my arms around her. I gave her a big hug, and she absolutely froze. She was horrified that I had crossed a line. And I just, the minute I did it, I don't know why I did it. It was just an impulse. I should have known better. And that was when I realized, I've still got a lot to learn, and I have to really, keep sort of learning more about this culture, and just you learn from your mistakes, I suppose, don't you?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it was a terrible moment.
We're going to minimize some of these faux pas. I'm going to read a little bit from page 135, 36 to 136 of her book about the tip number 66, gentle reminder of basic do's and don'ts. So, do only one thing at a time at the table. If you want to sip your wine, rest your utensils on the plate. How many of us do still have the fork in our hand? While find something to compliment. That's do. There should hopefully always be something about the food to praise. A compliment on the cuisine is always appreciated. Do bring your cutlery up towards your mouth, not your mouth down to the cutlery or your plate. I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Use your napkin correctly. It is for your mouth, not for blowing your nose. Do choose a style of dining, whether it's British, continental, European, or American, and stick to it throughout the meal. Otherwise, you look as if you're confused and you do not know what you are doing. Okay, some don'ts. Don't make an issue if you do not like something. Discretion is an art. It's all about being considerate, isn't it? If you really break it down, don't ask someone why they haven't eaten their food unless it's your child at the table in your own home. Discretion is an art. It is rude and only draws unwanted attention. Don't overload your fork with food. Some experts suggest only 2 food items on the fork at a time, but I disagree. Sometimes people make up rules. Mixing several flavors is fine, but just do not pile too much on your fork. Don't gesture with a knife or a fork in your hands. Don't dunk bread or anything in your soup.
Unless
bread or anything, Cody. That's the last time you did it.
You are taking the joy out of my mouth. I dunk everything in everything. I even dunk my chips in my ice cream.
Well,
When I go to McDonald's.
Oh, really?
As you are getting for an OB or MB, quit it.
Sorry.
And there's a Q&A here. True or false? When you have finished eating, you should place your silverware in the correct position and avoid pushing your plate away from you.
True.
True?
Yes, this is true, because if
we're gonna have a bit more fun with Q&As after this, but go on, Julia.
If you push your plate away from you, then potentially you're going to disturb if there's dessert cutlery, pudding cutlery at the top, then you're going to push it and disturb the plate. So there's no need for you to touch it. So you just leave it as it is.
Yeah. Awesome. Then, and I thought I would point out that for those of us who think, I don't go fancy places, I don't need to hear about any etiquette. There is also etiquette for buffets, isn't there? Yes, there's etiquette for buffets.
And barbecues as well, a little bit.
Barbecues. Oh, it's all covered. It's comprehensive, guys. It will save your lives.
And I would say what's funny is I've learned, so I was very interested in this for so many different reasons. Number one, I do feel like a lot of us have forgotten etiquette, right? So a long time ago, it used to be taught in school as part of home ec, right? Here in the US anyway. Home ec doesn't even exist anymore. So it's not taught. And so you find that, and then you have a cultural difference as well, right? Where folks have customarily shared one learned thing from their history, their culture, and pass it on to the kids, the grandkids. That's also a dying art too. And so when we talk, but also then there's this post-pandemic world of etiquette, which has changed our lives forever. Right. So when you talk about a buffet, I'm like, yeah, it might be a little different today than it was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, but this is the thing with etiquette. It has to evolve.
Yes.
I think some people do sort of make up rules that are not necessary, but etiquette will evolve. It has to evolve according to circumstances. Who would have thought pre-COVID that we would be thinking about Zoom etiquette. You know, I mean, nobody would have thought it. Even the people that were using it wouldn't really have thought about it in the same way. But now everybody knows, you know, you have to be on time and you don't eat noisily and all the different things
And
that are.
all of that is still about
You don't go to the
consideration.
bathroom.
All about consideration. That is it. You know, that is what really starts off when people need to start setting rules. Is because you have some people that are inconsiderate. And so
Yeah,
you've got to start saying, would you mind not? Would you mind, you know? But
exactly.
if we are considerate, half of the rules will not need to be made up. But I like you said about the buffet, because one of the things I know I've wondered about, uh, if I go for out with my husband, or say it's two of us, or how many of us are at the table, a little group, tiny two or three, and we go up for carvery or so on. When we come back, we tend to wait for each person. But when you have a big table, do you wait for your whole big table? Say it's a wedding that has a buffet service. Do you wait for all 10 people at your table? Do you just wait for the person to your left or your right, or the person in front of you? You dealt with that in the book, Julia. You want to tell us about that part of the buffet etiquette?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, buffets are technically considered sort of informal, but now they're very, very popular with many weddings. So they are more formal than what we would normally think. And while it's always polite, yes, to wait for everybody around you to be served, and then you all start eating at the same time. Sometimes you just have to be practical. And if you have really hot food and you're got 10 or 12 people at a table, they're all going to the buffet, there will be chat at the buffet. By the time everybody is seated, your food will be cold. So no, you just have to sort of think a little bit, depending on your circumstance. If you know it's a cold buffet and you can wait, then I think it's nice to do so, but it's not always obligatory, particularly when there's hot food. But definitely, I would wait for the people that are on either side of you, and then you can sort of start eating the food together. And it's also good because then you can start, if you haven't had a conversation with them already, it's a good way to start the conversation. You can talk a little bit about the food and things like that.
Yeah, that's good to know. I probably should have learned this. Although we were actually served our table plates. We went to have a speakers dinner recently for an event before a conference. And it was like, I'd say, between the speakers and the guests, it's probably there were 25 people were there, and it was in a nice banqueting hall. But when the food came out, it took its time, and by the time I was sat there waiting for everybody along the line to get their food, and my food was cold.
Exactly.
So maybe I should have been looking at the people in my little area, those in front and just beside me.
Yeah,
I was afraid of being the
best
first
way.
person to start eating. So awesome. Right. Any questions from the panel before I move on?
Yes, because for me, I wanted to say, what happens then when there is somebody there who is either deliberately, what can I say, ignoring etiquette, or somebody who you think probably could deal with it. So you are at a formal dining environment, or probably not even eating, maybe out and about, and you observe somebody who is not observing etiquette properly, and maybe let's say it's causing disruption. How do you deal with a situation like that?
I would say generally, don't point out other people's mistakes, because it's going to make everybody around feel very uncomfortable. For example, if you're at a dining table and somebody isn't doing anything, or they're eating noisily, or they're doing something incorrectly that you know is incorrect, then don't point it out, just ignore it. And that's the best way, I think. If it's a situation that's not at the dining table and it's disruptive, then perhaps you have to say something to someone. I mean, I can't think of any example off the top of my head, but yet I think are occasions where you can speak out and say.
Somebody speaking in a library or jumping the queue, or
yeah, exactly. Speaking in a library when there's people that are trying to study, they're trying to read, and it's meant to be a quiet place, then you can ask that person, of course. That doesn't mean to say you need to be aggressive. But you can just ask them politely to, please can you keep your voice down, because there's people trying to study, or I'm trying to read this book, or whatever. But it's about how you say it, I think, because if you deal with something and it could be that they're very annoying and you really want to just tell them what you think, but ideally just sort of, rein it in a little bit and be polite. And normally people respond to politeness with politeness, and they respond to anger with anger. So I think it's how you handle these things.
And I think the host in those circumstances has that responsibility. If it's something that is causing us a real disruption.
Yes.
It's the host. And you're right there, Julia. I remember when I used to run our chain of restaurants, and one of them had a cocktail bar situation that went on in the night. And you had some people who would come in and they would be a little bit inconsiderate, let's just say. And I found not just it being the host would be myself or Mark, but I found the female host with politeness got a lot more out of people who were causing disruption, because normally in those situations it's people who might have had a little bit too much wine at the reception bit of it. And so you have to just be very delicate. But I remember I used to just say, "Oh, come on now, lads," or "Come on," and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," and and that's all they need.
Exactly. It's how you handle it. And I think sometimes as well for women, it could be we can be deemed as less threatening. If you're dealing with men in that kind of situation, for example.
Yeah, awesome. Right. So there was this thing that I found really interesting when I was going through the book. Tip number 61, excusing yourself temporarily from the table. Now, I was a bit taken aback where I saw you said, I read somewhere that once the food appears at the table, if someone leaves to go to the restroom, they shouldn't come back to the table. Could eliminate me from any table. After all, we are adults and should be able to remain seated for the duration of the meal.
Oh, wow.
In an ideal world, of course, everyone would stay seated at the dining table for the entire meal. Reality, though, is quite different. Yes. Therefore, occasionally we may excuse ourselves briefly. Sometimes we need to leave the table, yet worry about whether it is okay to do so or not. Yes. Is it okay if you really have to? Yes. When you leave the table temporarily, excuse yourself discreetly, but do let those around you know that you are coming back. Leaving without saying anything can seem abrupt and quite rude. The guests may ask questions about your disappearing act, thus drawing more attention to your absence. That happened at my that same dinner I was talking about, because one of the men had to go off to he couldn't make it the next day, and he had to go off to record his talk. And that happened. The people were serving weren't aware. There was quite a bit of conversation around the whole thing. That kind of messed with the flow of it, just because it wasn't explained at the time. So yes, definitely, I actually saw that happen. Yes.
Yeah, I would say it's probably also just
explanation or to announce to anyone that you're going to relieve your bladder, of course. Just a simple excuse me a moment will suffice. Yes. And then there's the what should you do with your napkin? That comes after that. That's another thing. But yes, this picture here, your napkin there, you're leaving.
Yeah.
Right. Go on. No, you were trying to say something.
No, I was going to say, and oftentimes if you are going to a, high level event, and the servers will fix the napkin for you when you leave. Right. Yeah. But I was going to say, I always tell folks to communicate at the tables too, right? Because you might come back after not communicating with anyone and your food is gone.
Yes, right? Exactly. Exactly. So at least if we can wait till between the courses, then that reduces the risk. Yes.
Awesome. I'm looking here now at the tips about who pays. There are quite a few things. Cody, you have something to say there? Let me hear your view on who pays.
I think sometimes people assume that the person who is most able or in a better position to pay pays now. it used to be like the man is expected to pay. I don't believe that anymore, that, it's like, it's the responsibility, especially if you're on a date, like the man has to pay. I don't mind going Dutch on a date, but I think sometimes there's an expectation that you're doing better than us, so you should just pick up the tab. And yeah, that's not right.
Yeah, that's interesting. What Julia says here in page 154 of the book, she says the globally accepted rule is that the person who is hosting the dinner is the person who pays, and that's also for the gratuity. I didn't know that, because my habit is always, if somebody invites me out and they pay the bill, I pay the gratuity.
Yeah.
No, it's fine to offer, of course. You can offer to pay, and they may take you up on it, and that's fine. But it's not, if somebody invites you for dinner, then they're inviting you for dinner.
Right.
Yeah.
Different, obviously, when you're with friends and family, completely different. A different set of rules.
And I think there should also be etiquette around choosing, if you've been invited for dinner, choosing the most expensive thing on the menu.
I know.
Especially when you don't have the money. Like,
I want a lobster and all the trimmings.
I have been at a dinner before where I was invited, and it was a whole group of people, quite a few people. None connected, really, not my friends, just we were all invited, and they started eating all sorts. And they ordered all sorts of stuff, and we ordered Mark and I whatever we wanted, and then when it came to it, they're like, "Oh, let's just split the bill," and I'm like, "You're having a laugh.
right.
I'm not paying for all it."
Right.
How are you joking?
Yeah.
No.
That's what.
Yeah, what's the etiquette for that? Because I don't.
For that. Like serious. Like, come on.
Up until recently, I didn't drink myself, and every time I'd go out with people, they'll spend the whole night drinking, and then I'll have to split the bill equally among all of us. And I've just had a water or a Coke, but I still have to split the bill.
Yeah.
And I was too polite to say no.
I try to be very clear up front, which is in a very nice way with a big old smile. Hi, I'm not drinking tonight, so I won't be paying for any drinks I didn't drink. Right?
I think showing some clarity, and it could be like, well, I'm driving tonight, I'm not drinking, and then so I'm happy to split the bill, but I'll let you pay for your own wine, or something. Finding a way of saying it, but
yeah, it was really bad, because the thing is, we were invited, and then other people came along who weren't even a part of the initial invitation. I just don't know what a guest. I was a guest, and then you bring all these other people, and then you're just doing all sorts of stupid drinking and eating beyond excess as well. And then you're just saying, "Oh, let's split the bill."
Yeah. No, but you have to. It's important to find a way to deal with these situations. But if it's something that's happened and it doesn't make you feel comfortable, then you have to find a way of dealing with it. And I think, Desiree, that was a good example. You just say quite early on, I'm not drinking, or I'm just having a salad tonight, so I'll just get my own because I'm on a diet or whatever. I think, take the bull by the horns. And
Well, for what you're saying, though, the person who invited us should have paid the whole bill.
If you,
they're the ones who invited everybody.
I'm not inviting anyone out.
But it's different. It depends on the wording. I mean, if somebody says, "I'd like to invite you to celebrate for this dinner," or "I'd like to take you to dinner for your birthday," or for something like that. If it's "let's go for dinner," then that's a thing you're agreeing upon. It's not actually a verbal invitation. It's a discussion. Let's go for dinner. Let's all get together and go for dinner.
Whenever I go out for a meal, my rule of thumb is always I'm going to pay, and I might pay for that person. If it's not that if I invited them, obviously I'm paying because it's my treat. Exactly. If I'm going out, I go in my mind, okay, I'm going to pay my way, that's for sure. And what I love to do is, even if I think that we're going to split, I like to buy a bottle for the table, a bottle of champagne or a bottle of Prosecco Girl. So I end up buying everybody a drink then,
Right.
and then you have the thing. So there are ways
There
to
are
be
ways.
kind without
Exactly.
being
There are
taken
ways.
advantage of.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question, Julie. I'm always so for me personally, this is always something I question, which is if I'm taking a client out, or if a client and I have lunch or dinner or coffee, right? I'm not talking about like a big event, but like a lunch or dinner or coffee. I think I know the answer to this question, but given etiquette, who should pay?
You should pay.
I should pay. Okay.
I
Because
agree.
they're the clients, and
Yes.
also
Oh yeah.
you're inviting them, and there may come an occasion when they will invite you, which is what I mentioned in my book, that if you want to invite somebody for a business meal, then know that it's going to be something that you can work with your budget.
Right.
So if you're going to be worrying that this person's going to order the finest steak, champagne, lobster, then don't take them to that restaurant. Take them to a nice restaurant, but within a budget that if they order a starter, your entree,
Right.
order champagne,
What if
and
they invite you though, right? And that's your client, and they're like, "Hey, meet me at the most 5-star restaurant ever," and you're like, "I only eat here for special occasions."
well, normally it would be them that would pay because they have given the invitation
And they've chosen the place.
and
Okay.
they have chosen the location as well.
I've
Yes.
had some clients expecting me
What's
to pay.
But yes,
Right.
they may still, and then it's the decision as to how you handle that situation. If
Right.
you're effectively there, but if they're behaving like the host and they're asking for the wine menu and they're
Right.
communicating more with the staff, the servers, then that should be a clear indication that they're going to pay. But it never does any harm to offer. But there may be some clients that will just always take you up on your offer. They've chosen the 5-star hotel
And I
restaurant.
think it's
And
quite
then,
tricky that if you're expecting me to pay, you then choose the restaurant. So if you
exactly.
want me to pay, it should be up to me where I take you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I just thought I'd point this out in the book.
Excellent.
How is it going now? Oh, the camera. Come on, Bernie. Get the camera right. There you go. Even teaching us how to eat the banana, the whole banana at the table. Now, I have never in my life
Oh, wow.
took a knife to a banana. Tell us
No.
when we need to do that, Julia.
I put some things in just for fun, and no, I think nobody's ever really going to do that. But I did hear a story, and I don't know if it was ever true or not. I actually tell the story sometimes, and I forget to Google it to find out if it's true or if it's one of these, Chinese whispers. But there was a very famous woman, the wife of a more famous man, and they were at this formal event, and they brought platters of fruit, but whole fruit. So there were grapes, there were bananas, there were plums, and she took an orange. And we used to do this in the finishing school just for fun, and we used to teach them how to use just their knife and fork to cut and slice an orange, and at the end the orange would be on the plate and all the skin would be like this beautiful flower.
Oh.
It was very elegant. But I heard that this woman did this at this formal luncheon, and she did it and she had the orange and everybody was in awe about how elegant it was. It's not really going to happen in real life. I mean, I have a Spanish husband, and after every meal there's fruit, and when I'm with his parents there's fruit. It's just always, and people just use their fingers and they just eat.
Yeah.
Normally.
Excellent. So you do have all the tricky foods and the picky foods. You have how to fish. You have how to eat the shell fishes, the crustaceans, the mollusks, the snails, the mussels, all of that. It's all in here, guys. It really is. It's a reference guide, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Julia? It's an actual reference guide just to help you. You can go back to it every now and again. Even pasta, how to eat pasta. And now I can hear you, Cody. Come on, you're bursting. What you want to say?
I just really want to ask really quickly, because this is always changing and this is an age-old argument. Dating. When you go on a date, who is supposed to pay?
I think traditionally, it's interesting, but I think traditionally it's the person who invites The first
First
time.
date. First date.
So the first date, if somebody has asked you, then normally they should pay, but the rules are a little bit blurry now, and a lot of people just expect that it's automatically you go Dutch. So I would recommend if somebody invited you on a date, potentially think that you might be paying for yourself. Offer, it's always nice to offer. And if that person says, no, it's my treat, I insist, then you can say, well, okay, look, the next time I'd like to pay, or the next time you go Dutch, or let me buy you, let's go for after dinner drinks, something like that. But traditionally, it was the person who invited that would pay.
Yeah, I'm an old-fashioned girl. I think if
I was
anyone invites me for some meal, he's gonna pay.
Do
I'm
you
not
know
going Dutch. In fact, if he suggests I go Dutch, that's the last date.
It's funny because I have five children. Four are daughters, and two daughters. Well, one is 18. The other two are a little bit older. And dating, I have one daughter who says, "Well, nope. If he asks me on a date, I am not paying, and if he asks me to pay, it will be the last date." So
Exactly.
everybody's
Yeah.
different.
Right. Okay. So two things quickly. Bishop of Norwich. I just thought it was a very interesting story. Tell us about the Bishop of Norwich.
Oh, the Bishop of Norwich. Yes. When you pass food along the table, you to ease the flow of everything, you pass the food to the right, to the next person. So if you pass bread, you pass it to the right. You have to pass something, and it just keeps things going around the table smoothly. The Bishop of Norwich was the after dinner drink of port. Was very traditional in the United Kingdom, a little bit less so now, but in kind of formal at-home dinners, you would have the port on the table, and everybody would help themselves. Traditionally, they would take a little drink and pass it along, but sometimes people would be talking, and they would forget to pass the port along the table. So they introduced this. I think, did I mention this in the book? The bottle.
Yes, it said it at that time. They've mentioned they use this little way of getting people to pass the port. So they'll say, "Do you know the Bishop of Norwich?" So you say to the person who needs to pass the port, and that person will know, oh, that means pass the port, because he never used to pass the port.
Exactly. And then some households would have a special bottle that was slightly rounded, so that it couldn't be placed on the table.
Oh, okay. It had to be
passed along around the table. A little bit of useless information. Never did anything.
I just thought it was really, really cool to look back at some of the traditions. And the last thing, napkins. How do napkins signal the end of your meal? How do you use a napkin? We just talked about how you use a knife and fork. How do you use a napkin?
I mentioned this because a lot of people just throw their napkin on their plate, which is a real shame, especially if you're in somebody's home and they've got lovely napkins.
Right.
So you place your napkin just on the table as you do. And normally, if you're hosting a nice dinner party at home, or if you're hosting in a restaurant and you are the person responsible for getting everybody to stand up, leave the table, then the host would or hostess would put their napkin down on the table, and everybody would know that that's the time to finish.
Excellent. Right, we have 2 minutes. 2 minutes left. Woohoo! This has been excellent. I can't believe we haven't even had a chance to do our fun quizzes, but this has been excellent. Guys, I wanted to have some last words. Last word, Desiree, your first last word for today.
Well, first, I want to thank Julia. Thank you for sharing with us. This is, I think, like I said before, I think sometimes it's a lost art, right? Etiquette, because of, how fast the world is going, but also folks don't necessarily take what they have learned from one generation and share it with the next. So this is very, very helpful. I will make sure now that my client who always invites me to these fancy dinners and wants me to pay, I'm going to hold your book up and go, no, page 1.
Exactly. Awesome. Yes, and speaking about that, get the book. It's Amazon worldwide, A Dash of Decorum, 101 tips to guide you through formal and informal dining events. Cody, last word to you.
Yeah, absolutely, Julia. I really love your book, and I'm gonna get it as soon as I get off here. And for me, I've learned a lot. My hands are off the table since you told me, and and I think the most important thing that I've taken away is etiquette is there not only for politeness, but so that everybody gets included. So it's really important, whichever way or whichever language you learn it, is really important, especially in the country that you are visiting or you intend to reside in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very much. Thank you so much, guys. Another episode over, another fantastic discussion. Follow these ladies on LinkedIn. Uh, get to know what they do. Set up appointments with them. They are incredible. And buy Julia's book. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank
Bye.
Thank
you.
you so much.